Hey guys, in this video I'll be listing off my top 10 for the best giant killers in bodybuilding. These are guys who are no taller than around 5'6", but still boasted an extremely impressive winning physique during their era. Just so you know, I won't be including anyone from 212 that hasn't competed in the open class, strictly keeping this comparison to those who are open bodybuilders, or at least competed in the open class. Remember, this video will be purely based on my opinion, since it is objectively difficult to rank those of completely different eras. Anyways, before the video does start, a like and sub would be much appreciated, and a follow to my Instagram would really mean a lot. With that all being said though, let's get into this video. Alright, starting off this video, in the 10th place spot is going to be Flavio Banini. He was the shortest bodybuilder to ever compete on the Olympia stage, standing at a height of only 4'10". He made his bodybuilding debut in 1983 and moved to the IFBB in 1988. However, some of the most memorable moments of his career were standing next to Lou Ferrigno at the 1993 Mr. Olympia and placing second behind Vince Taylor at the 1999 Masters Olympia. Just imagine, many of these guys, had almost, if not more than a foot in height over him, as was the case with Lou Ferrigno. However, he still managed to beat top-tier guys like Robbie Robinson, Sonny Schmidt, and Mike Ashley. The reason I don't have him any higher on the list is due to the fact that other guys were just taller than him, and therefore a bit more dominant. However, he certainly was one of the most memorable giant killers of all time. In 9th place, I would have Franco Columbo. As many of you know, Franco came over from Italy to America and really started winning shows around the mid-70s. Of course, he won the Olympia in 76 and 81, however, the latter was extremely controversial as he came in significantly off but still won. However, when he was on, he was a force on stage. Standing at 5'5", he was able to beat taller guys all throughout his competitive days, most famously seen in Pumping Iron where he and Arnold battled it out for the 1975 Olympia title. He certainly saw much success throughout his career, politics aside, and brought a really good package to the stage, especially in that back. I wouldn't have him any higher though, because I do feel like others ahead just had better, more developed physiques. However, his fame and status as a two-time Mr. Olympia might convince you otherwise. In 8th place, I'd have Danny Padilla, the man who quite literally had the nickname the Giant Killer. Danny had some of the most impressive conditioning, density, and shape of his time, really only being held back by his shorter 5'2" stature. To be fair, I don't even really think he was held back because he was able to be extremely competitive on the stage, coming in 5th at the 1981 Olympia, his best performance on the stage. I personally do believe that he could have won that show, or at least was definitely better than Franco. However, that's for another video. Regardless, Danny continued to pursue bodybuilding well after that controversial Olympia, placing an impressive 3rd at the 1990 Night of Champions and continuing to compete up until the 2000s Master Olympia. In 7th place, I'm going to go with Lee Labrada. Lee is definitely one of the most impressive bodybuilders in my opinion, as although he wasn't the tallest, he certainly had some of the best conditioning, shape, and posing of his time. He was able to rack up an impressive amount of wins, mostly competing at the Grand Prix throughout the late 80s and early 90s, and securing multiple top 5 and top 2 Olympia placings. He was able to beat guys like Vince Taylor, Paul Dillette, and Andreas Munzer at the 1993 Arnold, coming second to probably the best flex wheeler of all time. Lee really did prove that height wasn't a weakness, as he was able to stay competitive with some of the best to ever do it, securing himself a spot amongst the greats. In 6th place, I'd go with the modern-day giant killer Shawn Ray. Shawn is one of those guys that nobody really thought would do well earlier on in his career. He never looked super impressive and didn't have the quote-unquote structure to do well, sitting at 5'2". He began his career in 2006 and turned pro in 2012. However, it wouldn't be until 2020 that he won the 2020 212 Olympia title. Although he is most famous for his 212 dominance, Shawn has competed in the open class, winning the 2021 Legion Sports Fest and beating guys like Sergio Oliva Jr. and Regan Grimes. He has also competed at the Arnold, facing off against guys like Big Ramy, Nick Walker, and Samson Dauda, and beating guys like Akeem and Justin Rodriguez. His conditioning, density, and crazy proportions are all super impressive, which would explain why he was able to cross-compete with ease. Next, in 5th place, I'd have Muhamad Benaziza, who may not have the best Olympia placings ever, but was certainly one of the most dominant giant killers of his time. Benaziza was able to win 6 shows in 1990 after finishing an impressive 5th at the 1989 Olympia, most notably the Night of Champions. Some impressive feats of his were that he was able to defeat Ronnie Coleman at the 1992 Olympia, as well as the great Dorian Yates, only one of 2 men to ever do so. Tragically, he passed away in 1992 after winning the Holland Grand Prix, which cut his career short. Who knows how dominant he could have been, as it seemed like his height of 5'3" didn't hold him back in the eyes of the judges. In 4th place, I'd go with the most recent Mr. Olympia, Derek Lunsford. Although many of you will probably be upset with this, let me explain. Derek was able to win the 212 title in 2021, and then just 1 year later placed 2nd at the Open Olympia. Then, of course, in 2023, he was able to win the Open Olympia in, albeit a controversial manner. However, that still doesn't really take away from the sheer dominance of his physique in certain poses. In the rear double and rear lat spread, his backside is completely shredded to the bone, and in the front double, his taper is probably one of the most impressive ever. All in all, he possesses some great density and conditioning in certain areas, but the reason I don't have him any higher is due to the many flaws within his physique that gets him heavily criticized. I would have him higher if he had won the Olympia in, a dominant fashion. However, as it is, 4th is a respectable placing. In 3rd place, I would go with another Olympia champion who arguably could place even higher up on this list, and that would be Hadi Chupin. Hadi is probably one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time, solely due to his work ethic and determination to win. Standing at a similar height to Derek at 5'6", Hadi was able to push past the height barrier and defeat guys like Big Ramy Samson Dauda and Andrew Jack, to name a few. He has some of the best conditioning ever, probably the best midsection ever, and can pose and hold shots forever. I personally think that he could have won the 2023 Mr. Olympia since he was the most complete on the stage, and I think that there really isn't anyone else on the list as complete as him. He's won almost every major title there is to win, and hopefully his career will continue in this positive trajectory. Alright, now we come down to the 2nd place finisher, and I'm sure many of you have an idea of who's left on this list. In this place, though, I would go with the man with the best arms of all time in my opinion, and that would be Lee Priest. Lee is one of those guys who, when he came in on, he was really on. He had some of the best genetics of all time, possibly the best on this list, and his height of 5'4" did not hold him back at all. At his best, he placed 6th place 3 times at the Olympia, beating guys like Jake Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, and Dexter Jackson, and was extremely competitive against many others. He ended up leaving the IFBB in 2004, competing at the NABBA Mr. Universe in 2013 as his last show, which he did of course win. Now, he is arguably the most aesthetic guy on this list, however, many of you may disagree with that when it comes to the 1st place finisher. Now, many of you must have seen this coming. In 1st place is no one other than Shawn Ray. Shawn is easily one of the most aesthetically pleasing guys of all time. Shawn was able to win some of the most impressive titles like the Arnold in 1991 and placed within the top 5 at every Olympia after 1990. Unlike Lee, he was one of the most consistent bodybuilders, progressively getting better and better over time. I mean, who can say they kept their Olympia placings basically the same for around 10 entire years? Maybe only guys like Kevin Levrone, Lee Haney, or Ronnie Coleman, which goes to show you just how good Shawn Ray's physique was. Many of you will find his takes and comments controversial, but his physique really does speak for itself. Crazy lines, great symmetry, and amazing proportions, and of course to top it all off, top-notch conditioning. I mean, what more could you even ask for? He's beaten almost all the greats, placed highly at all top caliber shows, but had to compete in one of the most difficult eras ever. Alright guys, that about does it for this video. In short, all the guys on this list were exceptional during their era, producing amazing physiques despite their shorter statures. While it is objectively true that being taller is better and more imposing on stage, the density and conditioning and the lines of these men on the list were clearly enough to beat the taller guys. In my opinion, height really doesn't matter all that much in bodybuilding, as right now the top caliber is being dominated by former 212 competitors. It really does go to show you that regardless of the genetics that you are dealt, hard work always pushes you further than pure genetics would ever get you. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and do let me know down below what you thought of it, and if you would have anyone else added to the list, or if you would switch around the list at all. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.